What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Daily Dime, coming off a nice NBA day. Not quite what we wanted from the NFL game, close all around, but good picks and just kind of a continuation of what we were talking about yesterday. Like, we know that the pick success is there. The big wins are going to come. I know you hit a nice 3-pick play from the show yesterday as well.
Yeah, the favorite three came through, and fairly easily, at least time wise, right? Sabonis was over, I think, early third quarter, and I think he ended up with 6
He
assists
did.
when all
Yeah,
was
he
said
did.
and done. So again, a little bit of luck in our favor there. Kaminga came out hot in both
Mhm.
halves, so he was over with like a quarter and a half to go. And the Sohan, I mentioned Sohan could start at the 5, and he did.
Yeah.
And so that he was over in the mid third quarter there too. But
Mhm.
De'Aaron Fox, who we'll talk about again today, he goes 9 of 23, I think. So he comes up short, and then of course Tucker Kraft goes over by like 3 yards or something. But again, dancing around the huge night. Like I frequently say here, the number in all of my prop betting accounts went up compared to yesterday. So it's a good night, and we'll move on to what is shaping up to be, I think, a pretty interesting Friday night slate.
Yeah, in fact, what I noticed yesterday that I wasn't expecting, like just watching the games and then kind of seeing how everything kind of turned out, was the 6-pick play that I had in from the, let's see, it had Sabonis 1.06, it had Kaminga 1.05, and it had Montgomery 1.2x. I didn't realize how much better that payout was going to be for a 5 of 6 than it usually is. I think I got like 4 to 4.5x for that 5 of 6. So that was a nice little surprise, and it
Yeah.
kind of shows these multipliers, they really do matter. So we're going to continue to kind of feast on those. On the NBA season so far, you can see this in the tracker: 12 of 18, so 12 and 6, 66.7% on those multipliers of greater than 1 so far this season. We're not going to be able to continue that. The
Yeah.
implied win probability on those was 43%, and we're hitting it almost 67%. So that will not last all season. But while it is here, we certainly like it, and it also goes to show that, like, when we are picking these picks that have the 1.2x, the 1.1x, whatever, we're not just like obsessed for some reason with that multiplier. It's things that we actually think are going to happen, and we just so happen to be getting that little boost to it. So might be able to find some more of those today. I know there's one that has my eye, but maybe not the strongest pick, and some lower multiplier than what we saw in the last one. But I'll kick it to you here, Zach, to start us off. I know you have a bunch of points props that you like tonight.
Yeah, trio of points props here, and maybe we can add some more along the way.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of news here. We're still waiting on injury reports from the Bulls, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Warriors, who are on the second end of the back-to-backs here tonight. Wembanyama, I expect to be listed questionable, and I expect him to sit out again and return on Sunday against the Pelicans. I also think we could see Devin Vassell take a seat here on the second end of the back-to-back. Maybe Chris Paul. But Trey Jones is also out, so we'll have to see there. I think CP
Mhm.
probably gives it a go here tonight. We have Austin Reeves out once again for the Lakers. LeBron is questionable, and the way that line has moved since last night to this morning in favor of Atlanta, I lean that LeBron James sits out here tonight and misses his first game of the season. We'll talk about Dalton Connect. Actually, let's go ahead and start there. Some of the other news, though, as we pull up Connect, Kristaps Porzingis was out. We did get the Celtics news right before we went live, so shout out to Boston. Porzingis is out. Tatum and Horford are in. Your Sixers, Embiid, and Adem Bona, who there have been some entertaining posts in the FTN Fantasy Discord surrounding Adem Bona. They are both out, but Andre Drummond questionable to make his return from the ankle injury, so we'll keep our eyes on that. Nembhard is questionable for the Pacers in a Bulls-Pacers matchup with a 248 implied total and a close spread. Clarkson and Kyle Filipowski still out for the Jazz. Filipowski, rather, sent down to the G League. Klingon and Time Lord out for the Blazers on the other side of that game. Scoot Henderson questionable to miss his 4th game in a row. And rejoice, my best ball lineups. Chris Middleton will make his season debut for the Bucks here tonight. But Dalton Connect, let's get into the picks here. And good to see Weisberg in the chat.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what Mike thinks about his Celtics, given Porzingis out here tonight in a decent matchup against the Bucks. But Connect, line at 13.5 points here. I think this is too low, even if LeBron plays, and I think we can kind of get out ahead of that. Again, it's not a extremely strong lean that I have that LeBron plays, but you put that Nerf gun to my head, I would say that he sits out here tonight. 13.5 points. We got a 231.5 implied total here. I believe the Hawks now favored by 5.5, 5.5 at home here. So Connect. He is over this number in 8 of his 13 games where he's played 22.5 minutes or more. You take that line up to 26, he's over in 7 of 11. And you take him up to 30 or more minutes, and we haven't projected for 30 minutes here with Austin Reeves out. He's over in 6 of 7 games where he's got at least 30 minutes or more. So again, if LeBron sits, I think we see this number at 16.5 at minimum. Because all the usage that's going to disseminate amongst this starting lineup if LeBron takes a seat. And I think this line is pretty good even if Bron plays. I think this is affected a little bit by the recent downturn in Connect's shooting. And is he hitting the rookie wall? Maybe. To me, it's a little bit early for that. I think it's just variance here. He's 6 of 22 from the field in his last 3 games, just 1 of 12 from 3. Even with those 3 games in the mix in his stats, his season box score, he's 47% from the field. He's a 40% three-point shooter still, even with that downturn. So the opportunity, the pace here against an Atlanta team that is exceeding certainly my expectations. I really like this Dalton Connect number here. I think he could blow this out of the water. And this is one that I have interest in taking a look at ladder opportunities this morning because you won't get them if LeBron is ruled out.
Yeah. If you didn't say it, I was going to. I would like to point out Atlanta allowing the most threes per game. So I was looking at some ladder opportunities on the points where you can go way up. Like I think the 7.6x at 24.5 is interesting. And then also we hit the 3 points ladder on De'Aaron Fox a couple weeks ago. And I think we could do a similar thing here with Connect. He already has 4 games of 5+ threes. And 2 over 5.5. So 6.85x at 5.5, I think also interesting. Very clearly with him, when he's on, they get him the ball and he chucks. And when he's not, he becomes a secondary, tertiary, even the 4th or 5th option on the offense. So I really like the ladder opportunities for him, just given what we have seen in the way that not just he produces, but the way that they actually use him while he's hot.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. Again, kind of mind meld there saying, okay, this is the time to look at these Dalton Connect ladder opportunities, right? In terms of his shot attempts, it's more than half of his shots are from 3, right? I think it's above 60% when I looked earlier this morning. So I might even prefer the 3-pointers ladder compared to what we were getting there on the numbers for the points.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with either one. I think the 4.5 is kind of the magic number for me. And if I'm doing that, I'm going to throw in an entry with the 5.5. But I feel a lot better about the 4.5 there. And I think the numbers that Underdog are giving us kind of indicates we should feel much better about the 4.5 compared to the 5.5.
Yeah, I think I would say the 4.5 on the threes is probably my favorite one. And sure. I would actually, I think, prefer the 24.5 for 7.6x over the 5.5 on threes. If he hits 6 threes, what are the chances that he's not getting to 24 to 25, right? He would just need 7 more points. So three buckets and a free throw. You got to think that would happen. So yeah, I think really like this base play here for Connect. Also like the ladders. Where are we going next?
Yeah, and I was going to say, keep in mind, last thing on Connect, keep in mind those 4 games where he has 5 or more threes. LeBron played in all those games. So that's not dead if LeBron plays.
In fact, it's weird. It's who's better at making sure that the guy who's hot gets the ball with a chance to shoot, ball right where he wants it to shoot, than LeBron James. Yeah. So
it's not D'Angelo Russell.
Definitely not D'Angelo Russell. So on the one hand, I know LeBron, the usage is going to be there. We might play more minutes. They're going to need his offense more. On the other hand, if LeBron plays, LeBron's going to find Connect. So I think a really good read there on the fact that we will certainly see line movement if LeBron is out, but it's probably just as good even if he's in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Weisbergen here saying somehow Porzingis came back earlier than Middleton, about a 25-40 pick drop in best ball. Yeah, that's why I've been waiting for this day. Even we're only going to get probably 16 to 20 minutes from Middleton tonight, but just stay healthy, man.
Mm-hmm.
I need that guy out there. Let's go to Spurs and Kings. I mentioned that I think Victor Wembanyama will sit out again here tonight, and this kind of plays into the Fox pick. I'm going right back to De'Aaron Fox. We took him at 24.5 against Memphis last night. I mentioned the poor shooting for Fox, not just in that game, but of late. It's kind of similar to what we just talked about with Dalton Connect, where the recent sample size is just not indicative, I think, of what we should expect on a game-to-game basis. And potentially lowering this line, because, I don't know, Alex. Even on the second end of the back-to-back, I don't think his points line should be lower tonight than it was last night against a better defensive team. And maybe this line is 23.5 because they're factoring in Wembanyama being in. Again, I think everything I saw from beat writers after the game last night was expect Wembanyama to be listed questionable, but sit out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We haven't projected for north of 26 here today in terms of his points in the FTN fantasy model. Again, shooting poorly of late, but the shot attempts in the last 5 games, Alex, 23, 19, 23, 18, and 22. That feels pretty good. Again, he has shot below his season averages efficiency-wise in all 5 of those games, still averaging 26.8 points per game on the year. Just yesterday we talked about that number's buoyed a little bit from the shorthanded games that he played, the 60-point game he had. But Kings 6-point favorites here in San Antonio, which I think is another indicator of Wembanyama sitting out tonight, because Spurs at home with him in, they haven't been 6-point dogs to many teams, whether they're on the road or at home this year, when that situation arises. So I think, again, this line is too low in general, and especially too low if there's Zach Collins and Charles Bassey patrolling the paint. Right. And maybe even another Sohan game where, I think we should respect Sohan's overall defensive ability. I think he's continuing to progress, but he is not a rim protector. And De'Aaron Fox going downhill against the San Antonio defense feels pretty good. If we're getting low 20s in shot attempts again, at some point he's going to make some shots. De'Aaron Fox is a pretty good player.
Yeah, and to that point, the Spurs 11th in points in the paint allowed, that goes way, way down with no Wembanyama. So as you said, good line regardless. Great spot here if Wemby is out. Before you give your third pick, why don't we have the Philadelphia discussion?
Let's do it.
You know where we're going, guys. We're going Tyrese Maxey first quarter points. Down to
Preston. I'm sorry to interrupt, Alex. Preston wants us to do the double, and I was thinking about it too. So keep going. But I was looking at Derek White this morning.
That's amazing. All right. Oh, that's so funny. This is why we love this, right? This is why we have so much fun on this show. Appreciate you guys, Preston and Mike, in the chat. So here's the thing with Maxey. Last 2 games, he's 1 of 14 from 3. This is not some extended slump, though. The 2 games prior, he was a combined 11 of 22 from 3. He also had a stretch of 2 games earlier this month where he was 1 of 12 from 3. His next 4 games, he shot 50% in every single one of those from 3. So I'm really not concerned about the shooting. The bigger concern, though, is that Orlando allows the 3rd fewest threes per game and the 3rd fewest points in the paint per game. So if there's a reason to get off of it, it is that, not the slump that the quote unquote slump that he's been in for us. But 5.5 is still so low. It's so low for him because he's playing 11 plus minutes per game in the first quarters right now. I also went ahead and did some math. We haven't projected for 23 points and 38 minutes tonight. Mm-hmm. If you just take that points per minute ratio, it puts him at about 6.75 minutes as the expectation in the first quarter. So 5.5, too low, even despite this matchup, even despite the fact that we haven't projected below his game total of points line. So I like it. I think we're going back to it at 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, again, he has over the last 2 games, one with Paul George in, one with Paul George out, 11 minutes, 11 and a half minutes. I don't see how we can ignore this again. I feel like if we were going to it when we didn't have that recency bias of the 11 and 11 and a half minutes, why would we not, like, if we were going to it then, how can we not go to it today in an equally tough, it's the Magic again, right?
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I mean, part of that thesis was like, we think he's going to play 11. Well, now we know he's going to play 11. At least we know that's the plan, right? He could get in foul trouble. He could get hurt. Who the hell knows?
Of course.
But the plan is for Maxey to play 11 to 12 minutes in the first quarter. So definitely agree here. Let's toss it in there. And alongside of this one, I kind of alluded to a pick that we could go to today that has another multiplier. We hit on this the last time. Paul George, first quarter assists over 1.5. It was 1.25x last time, all the way down to 1.07x. Obviously not a great matchup here with Orlando. What's your thought here? Because I think that this is still a pick I like, but it would be a whole lot better at 1.25x.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I didn't look ultimately at his potential assists in the first quarter those last two times, but I believe it's 4 and 2 assists in his last two first quarters. So, like, I don't hate it. And, like, it does correlate well with Tyrese Maxey first quarter points.
Yeah.
But I'm not, like you said, the multiplier coming down to closer to just that standard 1. I'm not as in love with this as we were the other night, but if this is what we need to tie together a 6-pick play, I'm for it. But if we can find something, like if we get stocks props while we're live here, things like that, let's at least take a spin through some of those and maybe come back to this.
I think that's where I'm at too. I also think there's a decent chance that if he doesn't hit in this tough matchup, even in a better matchup next game, that maybe he will be back to that like 1.2x area. So it's not like we can never go back to this again if we don't take it tonight. So I think at the 1.07, that's a little bit too close to a base for me to really like it. But as you said, if we need a 6-pick play, we've got a correlation here with Maxey. So certainly wouldn't be opposed to adding it in. All right, next pick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do this points one. Then I do want to talk for a second about Derek White, but let's go to John Collins, another one that we've been all over the last couple weeks with Jordan Clarkson out. We know Clarkson is out. We know Filipowski is out once again. We've got him projected just north of 20 points in the model this morning. His line's at 17.5 here on Underdog. So I actually prefer it on Prize Picks, where right before we went live, it was still at 16.5. So he's definitely in. I think we get our protected play there on Friday at Prize Picks. So this morning, he's going to be in there if he's still at 16.5. He's over in just 4 of 7 without Clarkson this season, but kind of like I talked about 2 nights ago when he was at 15.5 against the Thunder. He has missed with 15. That was a 22-minute outing, 15 against OKC, but he only took 9 shots the other night, which is well below what we should expect from him with the usage rate he has with no Clarkson this season. And he had 16 against Dallas. He went 6 of 15 that game, which is well below what he's doing this season. Fun fact, which I'm probably I'm going to go ahead and guarantee nobody listening to this knows that John Collins is a 53, 40, 91 guy this season. He's been great, at least on the offensive end. So averaging 17.8 points per game on the season, 2.5-point dogs in Portland, slightly shorthanded Blazers team there in the front court. You've got DeAndre Ayton and then Jabari Walker, Jeremy Grant, Duop Reef. Like, I'm not scared about that front court from a defensive point of view. Like, Jeremy Grant, okay, but John Collins can score the ball. He's been extremely efficient this season. And the model really likes this as well. So I'm with John Collins once again at over 17.5 points.
I'm looking at some of the rotation since he's at a point higher on Underdog than Prize Picks. I was thinking, could we go to his first quarter points? Some really strange rotations from this Utah team. Markkanen and Kessler both played every single minute of the first quarter last game. The game prior, Markkanen came out after 5 minutes, no foul trouble. Kessler came out after 7 minutes, no foul trouble. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but I have an
answer for you.
No, I'm not.
I have an answer for you. What coaching tree does Will Hardy come from? Answer, Popovich. Look, when Shazam and everybody in the NBA DFS chat here says F the Spurs, like, you can say that to a lesser extent for some of these Popovich guys because Will Hardy has no problem pulling the plug on whatever his normal rotation has been to try to get a spark in some of these games. And it makes sense because they did get the brakes beat off them by Oklahoma City the other night. So they get down by 10-15 right away. Boom, we're going to make that change to the rotation. So in terms of John Collins and his first quarter rotations. This is an 11-game sample, 11 games in a row going back almost a month to November 12th. He has played no less than 8 minutes in any first quarter in those 11 games, between 8 and 10 minutes in all of those. So if you wanted to go to the first quarter prop, you could at 4.5. But I really like, again, we haven't projected north of 20 here tonight against Portland. So I just like the full game 17.5.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. That inconsistency in the first quarter is a little troubling. Portland also has been a great matchup for just standard points, so kind of just take advantage of that whole thing. Plus 16% to opposing power forwards, so definitely like that. All right, time to talk Derek White, I think.
Yeah. Let's talk Derek White. So we know Porzingis is going to be out here. We do have 2 games against Milwaukee already this season. Of course, Tingus Pingus was out for those as well. One went really well, 7 points in his 9 minutes, 3 of 5 from the floor. The other one, I think that might have been one where we took him, and he came up just short at 3. Yep. But 8 minutes in that game against the Bucks, 9 minutes in the first outing. So, look, the volatility with his first quarter rotations is still there. We've left this alone for almost 2 weeks now. Nothing has changed in that regard. His last 5 games, in terms of his first quarter minutes total, 7, 6, 9, 5, and 8. He's over in 2 of the last 3, 6, 2, and 8 in his last 3 games. So again, this is still a volatile pick. So I think I do like this a little bit more than the Paul George pick that we were eyeing. But I don't love it. So if we get, some fantasy score props, or we take a look at the stocks here, or if you've got anything else in the hopper, let's talk about those. But I think I prefer the 1.19x on White's 3.5 against this very weak Bucks backcourt and Bucks defense overall, for the better multiplier compared to Paul George's assist, which, Mike pointing out here, don't love the matchup against Orlando, and he's going to be guarded most likely by Franz Wagner. And if Goga Batadze is back in there tonight, right, that adds another element to the overall defensive prowess of the Orlando team with his rim protection.
Yeah, I agree here. I think the disappointing thing is that they're very much on top of the fact that like White has been super volatile in first quarters. Like typically, if we were seeing 1.19x on 3.5, we'd be seeing maybe 2.5 to 3x on the 5.5. We're only seeing 1.88. So they really kind of covered themselves on this one. A bump from 3.2 to 4.0 from 6.5 to 7.5. Like they're on top of that. So I think the 3.5 is probably good. But like you, it's not a strong conviction play for me. I think put it in the exact same bin as Paul George, where I like it slightly more than Paul George because we're getting a better multiplier, but we don't get the correlation with White that we get with George. So they both are just like right there for me. Time to look at some stocks. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we do have a bunch already. Anthony Davis 2-0, but 0.84.
I would have interest in Victor, but I don't think he plays.
Yeah, 1.14 at 4.5 would have been great. Jeremy Grant 2.5. What's that? Because that's
against Utah.
That's
Although
the
matchup. I know that I think you mentioned Utah's kind of been turning that around there.
Yeah, a little bit. Basically, since Kessler came back and they've been playing bigger.
Okay.
But I mean, it's still a good matchup. Don't get me wrong. Grant averaging 2.1 per game, so. Yeah, I don't see anything here that I love just yet. Let's check out the skills. Suggs at 1.27 catches my eye.
For 1.5 steals?
Yeah. Chris Paul 1.24 seems interesting.
I agree. For what it's worth, we have Chris Paul projected right around 1.5 and Suggs just behind that. Okay. You're getting a lower multiplier with CP, I think.
Yeah.
D'Lo, Howie.
1.27 and 1.24.
Let's see what else we got. Blocks.
There's nothing here that stands out to me as anything close to as strong as the Gilgeous-Alexander one yesterday.
Yeah.
Chris Paul averaging 1.4 steals per game. Is this matchup good, though? Let's see. Plus 18%. I think the Chris Paul one is good, but it's like throw it in the exact same bucket as the Paul George first quarter assists and Derek White first quarter points for me. Let's check blocks.
Agree. I don't think I'm trying to look back through his game logs now. I mean, CP hasn't sat this year, so I mentioned like maybe he could sit on the back-to-back here, but we have zero track record of that, and everything points to him playing tonight from what this team has done so far this year.
Yeah, I don't really see anything here that's super worthwhile.
Okay, so if we have the 3 points props that I've talked about, so we got Connect, we got Collins, we got Fox, we got Maxey first quarter.
One other one that I will mention, Chicago dead last in points in the paint allowed. I mentioned that yesterday when talking about Sohan. Sohan obviously came through, should have had 1 million points, missed like 6 layups in the first half or something like that.
Yep.
I was looking through Indiana for points in the paint. They don't have anybody who really stands out. Pascal Siakam leads the team with around 10 points in the paint per game. For context, a much lower points line than Sohan has. Sohan actually averages more points in the paint per game than Siakam. But second place on Indiana is a very interesting name. Not available on the board yet. Can you guess who's second on the Pacers in points in the paint per game?
I'd say Obi Toppin.
It's not.
Is it a starter? When you said it wasn't somebody. Well,
not a starter.
TJ?
Yes.
Yeah, Timothy John.
So I don't know if we're going to get anything for him. They don't always post guys who play 19 minutes a game, but 24, 22, 24, 28 in the last 4 games, 12, 15, 14, and 14 points. I'm guessing that if we do get a line for him, it's probably going to be 11.5, something like that. And he's averaging almost 8 points in the paint per game. So he might get there on just points in the paint alone in this matchup. I would have a lot of interest in TJ if we get a points prop for him.
Of course, Prize Picks has now taken down the John Collins 16.5. Didn't even repost the 17.5 yet, but checking their fantasy score props. Over there, man, I mean, they just gave us... So if they posted Connect fantasy points, they got to have his points up there now. Okay, so we did get Connect as we were live. 23 fantasy score. I think I just prefer the points. D'Lo 29.5. Anthony Davis 53.5. I like both of those on the surface. And that's with LeBron in. I mean, we've got Anthony Davis projected for 4 more fantasy score points. Very similar situation with D'Lo. I love both of those fantasy score props on Prize Picks. And those Atlanta numbers look a little low too. Jalen Johnson 42.5. Don't hate that. The only other game we have on Prize Picks right now is Philly and Orlando.
Real quick, one other thing that I'll mention here is we have fewer of those like out of the box, if you will, picks tonight. We only have the 1 first quarter points. We don't have any stocks picks just yet. So this could end up being a very good night to go play over on pick 6. There are 2 picks on pick 6. In fact, let's see if they have added them here. The under on Giannis, 3.5 turnovers is there. The under on Jaylen Brown, 2.5 turnovers is here too. So I like both of those on pick 6. Probably a little bit more on pick 6 because there you're getting the benefit of no one is taking turnover picks over there. And especially nobody is taking unders on turnover picks. So if you hit those, you're hitting some contrarian picks. But the model has 58% for Giannis's under on 3.5 turnovers and 63% for Jaylen Brown's under 2.5 turnovers. Any interest on either of those for you?
Yeah, I think I would probably lean more towards the Jaylen Brown pick just on the surface compared to Giannis there. None of them really like jump off the page, but again, that's kind of a play that I think you found like the model pointing out to you this morning. So I don't hate that at all. I mean, if LeBron sits, I think D'Lo over 2.5 turnovers makes a lot of sense. If we're if that's what we're kind of playing for here this morning.
I would agree with that. The only thing is I don't know how much correlation there would be between the D'Lo turnovers and connect threes
It could be negative, I guess. Yeah.
or connect points. Yeah, you kind of want D'Lo to actually be connecting on those passes to connect, no pun intended, instead of throwing them over his head into the stands. But
yeah. And to be honest, D'Lo is, I'll give him credit, man. 2.3 turnovers per 36 minutes. That is 0.9 turnovers better per 36 minutes than his career averages. So even in the reduced role, and maybe that's helping. But he was at the same 2.3 number last year. So he's actually done a lot over the last season and change to kind of take care of the ball more here. And maybe that's credit to LeBron, because like if you're tossing the ball away, you ain't playing, bud.
Yeah, and the other aspect of that, Atlanta is fourth in opponent turnovers per game. So I do think that over would be pretty solid if there's no LeBron. Curious to see if that would stay up. I'll tell you, Zach, I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger on any of these yet, just because I feel like we could end up getting better. But I also think it might just be worth doing at least the connect ladders right now, where we only really want to do 3-pick plays, and maybe you just do kind of a round robin of these other three that we have here: the Fox points, the Maxey first quarter points, the John Collins points. What do you think of that?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is it's looking like I'm going to round robin these here this morning, and then of course for our FTN Fantasy subscribers, if and most likely when we find more picks that we like or we feel more solid on some of those that we have discussed here on the stream this morning, we will talk about that in the Pick'em Games channel leading up to lock here tonight. Weisberg already on the Connect 3-point ladders there. You love to see it. I'm going to make sure to get those in. So let's talk about the DFS slates real quick, so then I can get
actually,
to this.
Zach, I've got to jump, but why don't you do that? We got ownership up, so you got everything you need. I'll let you share the screen, and I will jump off here.
All right, dude. We will see you on Monday, or I mean Sunday morning, of course, for the NFL stream with Two Gun. But back here on the Dime on Monday.
Mm-hmm. That's a good reminder too. I should also note our contest sims are loaded in already for this weekend slate, so you can already begin to start playing around with those. GPP scores are up, ownership projections are up, so you can start simming stuff. I found some really cool stuff. Instead of going to Saquon against the Panthers, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, which are simming really, really well. So excited to dive more into that. Appreciate you, Hugo. Appreciate you, Mike and Preston and Derek. I saw as well in the chat earlier. So catch you guys later, and you guys are in good hands for the DFS slate here with Zach.
See you, buddy. All right, let's get the screen share going here real quick. We'll talk about these slates, get the ownership up. Boom. All right, we'll get a couple zooms. And you guys get to go through this with me because I have not seen these yet this morning. So DK, GPP scores, John Collins. Look, that is a FTN model darling at this point. I think not only is the projection still in the same range that we've seen over the last couple of weeks with Clarkson out and the Collins minutes very, very steady compared to the beginning of the season. Also, just 5.5% projected ownership in the morning run. So I think you would have to have some more Utah absences, I think, for the field to coalesce around John Collins. So I think we get that. I think we see that GPP score kind of remain in this upper tier leading up to lock here tonight. Mike said, did you see Zakarian's UD? I did not. How much did he take down? Yeah, let me know. Shout out. Yeah, the sim loves itself some John Collins. Look, man, I still think it makes a lot of sense. Like, let me pull up the on-offs here for them. Because, of course, we keep adding minutes to this sample size with no Clarkson this year for John Collins. John Collins on the season, 25% usage rate, 1.22 DK points per minute. Let's take Clarkson off. John Collins, usage rate, 24.2. Let me get him on, shed that other data there. 1.27 DK points per minute. So less of a dramatic jump, less of a drastic jump than it was when we first saw Jordan Clarkson go out. But again, the minutes have been extremely solid here for John Collins. And I mentioned now a 50, 40, 90 guy through the first quarter of this year. Game logs, again, like the 31 minutes we saw against OKC, got their butts beat. That was the lowest minutes outing we have seen from John Collins since Clarkson went out. A little over 2 weeks ago now, I believe, is the last time we saw the San Antonio native. So I don't disagree with the model here in terms of this big GPP score for John Collins. He was in my placeholder on both sites last night. Not that he was like the first guy I was clicking in, but he made it in the mid 7K tag on both. Let's see on FanDuel real quick. Yeah, I mean, he's tops on FanDuel too. Right around 10% owned. And there's, okay, well, so the model, is not taking in my thought process, of course, but those are my two power forwards on FanDuel right now. The top two in the GPP scores, John Collins, Jeremy Sohan, 6,300 for Sohan. And I think today, like, just dovetailing to FanDuel real quick, some of these center-only guys littering the top end of the GPP scores here with Vooch, who crushed San Antonio last night, Walker Kessler, Miles Turner. I had Anthony Davis in my center spot, so using one of those power forward eligible guys so I could get all three of Collins, Sohan, and the Brow. And again, it was building like LeBron was out. So D'Angelo Russell, I imagine he is not in the top end of this because when we sort by ownership, boom, there he is, third. So that is probably giving him a significant hit to his GPP score. You see Ben Mathurin as well because of that 47% projected ownership, but he was in the notes here. He was in the placeholder. 6K over there on FanDuel. Guard forward eligible. And again, 248 implied total with the Pacers. 3.5-point road favorites there in Chi-Town. Message. Okay, we're good. See, those same three guys on DraftKings, though, Anthony Davis, Jeremy Sohan. And the model loves LeBron here this morning at 9,600. Again, I don't think he plays. If he does, this is indicating we should have some LeBron James shares in our MME builds. You could certainly consider him for a single entry. The Bulls are a team, again, one of the four that we're waiting on the official injury reports here this morning. Bulls, Kings, Spurs, Dubs. And if we see Kobe White out again, right, Josh Giddey was questionable coming into yesterday. Somebody could have picked up some bumps and bruises. I don't remember any off the top of my head. Modest Buzelis looked like he broke his nose. You would think they could get him back, get a mask on him today and have him out there, but certainly wouldn't be shocked to see Buzelis sit here tonight because he got whacked by Levine's elbow on a rebound attempt last night. So maybe he sits, and maybe that's why you see THT here, 4,100, small forward only on DraftKings. You would certainly have more interest in THT. He closed last night, of course, with Kobe White out and with Buzelis going to the locker room early. Of course, Ayo Dosunmu had the triple-double last night. I was very fortunate on DraftKings where I got off all my Zac Collins CP3 went to Dosunmu Plumlee pairings. And I had a couple Bassies left over that I couldn't get off of. But Ayo Dosunmu, I don't think we see anything close to that again here, but the minutes are going to be there. And 5,700 in that game with nearly a 250 implied total. You see him also hovering up here with the Giddies, the Vooches, the THTs. You don't see a ton from the other side of that game. Halliburton's up here. He's 18% owned. Siakam's down here, 14% owned. So relatively muted ownership from the Pacers side of things, which I guess makes sense, right? Some of those prices have adjusted for Nembhard being out. Now Nembhard is questionable to make his return here tonight, and when he's been back, he's just kind of muddied up that rotation, not finishing. I don't believe he's finished the last two games that he played. Let's see. Sohan looking good. Baby Rodman. So, and I love Sohan, Hugo, but to me, Dennis Frodman is the best nickname I have heard for Jeremy Sohan. Spurs got a new play-by-play announcer as Bill Land retired. The legendary Bill Land, shout out. Yeah, and Jacob Toby started calling him the Green Monster last night, which I'm not with that. This is the neon green hair right now for Sohan. John Collins score has to come down by a lot. Feels like the public might migrate to. See, I don't think so, Hugo. I don't think the public has much interest in a $7,200 John Collins. I think he's, I think the general consensus is he's priced appropriately. But we'll see. Not liking THT as much as the model is, but I think I like Jalen Johnson more than the model. And that's fair. And again, we need the Bulls injury report. Surprising that the Pacers aren't looking a little better with that total and environment. Hadn't heard that. Yeah, Dennis Rodman. So yeah, and another thing about, especially on DraftKings with Pacers Bulls, it's almost a 250 implied total. The highest priced player is 8.4K for Vooch. And this is a 3-point spread right now. So I agree with you that I think that game as a whole is underrepresented. So we've got D'Lo at 5,400. If you want to lock him into every single lineup tonight, even with LeBron in, be my guest. 5,400 against the Hawks, no issue there. But then you see Obi Toppin, 3,600. He's 22% owned. That's second highest on the slate right now. I don't think that holds. I mean, I know he's been great. Like we talked about the 30 fantasy points in like 15 minutes 2 games ago. The efficiency's been there from a point per minute standpoint, so maybe. But to see Obi be second in the ownership right now, like, it would be an interesting conversation to have on who the stronger play is between he and Jarris Walker. But overall, again, right, Pacers Bulls, I think you want to target that game. That's certainly not a hot take. And if the ownership stays this muted, which, like, it certainly could. It certainly could, because when we get Wembanyama out, maybe there's more attention going to San Antonio. I think you can take shots on those Sacramento guys, on a De'Aaron Fox, on a Sabonis with no Victor on the other side, if that's the way it plays out. Malik Monk at his number, right? Slowed down a little bit last night after another hot start, but there's going to be some ownership, some leverage opportunities ownership-wise for sure. For what it's worth, in that Golden State game, I do think we get Steph and Draymond back tonight. Let's see what else we got. Feels like you have to have a Pacers bring back in game stacks with multiple Chicago's. Hallie over Siakam. I would right now. Halliburton was in my FanDuel placeholder. Again, I mentioned my interest in some of the other forward options there. So that's what I got to. 8,300 on DraftKings, like. And I know the ridiculous splits right now for Hallie, right? So if you're buying into the home road splits so far this year, then technically, road game, you don't play them, but I don't think I can abide by that tonight. Not the way this game looks. Maybe both, considering ownership. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that. Especially if we have, right, if Kobe White is out again with the ankle. We know Lonzo's out, right? We know Pat is out. With that right ankle for Giddey. And he did not look great last night. Maybe he takes a seat. And again, Buzelis, you could certainly see him miss with that broken nose. If it is in fact broken. That's what it looked like. Anything else here? Take one more spin through FanDuel. Jeremy Grant pulling 33% ownership. I guess I get it at 6K. And you can play him at small forward. I'd rather Ayton, though. You see Ayton getting a ton of attention there, too, at 6,100. Really nice price on some of those Blazers guys in a game they're favored in, which will not happen a ton this season. And it's not a disgusting total there. 225. Blazers favored by 2.5 at home. Again, the other late night game, I do think Warriors, they're 1-point dogs right now. 218 implied total. I think we see Steph play. Draymond I would be a little less sure of, but again, Nerf gun to my head, I'd say both guys in. I think that'll do it for me right now. A little bit of talk on both sites. Some of the best games to target, some of the top GPP scores, ownership spots. Appreciate you guys tuning in here on our Friday. Hope everybody enjoys their week. And of course, Daily Dime's back same time, same place next week. I'll see all the FTN fantasy subscribers in the Discord throughout the day. And of course, over the weekend. And make sure you tune into that FTN NFL show Sunday morning with Alex and Two Gun. Always the best way to get ready for your NFL main slate. Appreciate everybody once again who is in the chat, Hugo and Derek and Mike and P-Buck. We'll see you guys on Monday. Let me click over to the right screen here because now we've got the intro, we've got the outro, upgrading here on the Daily Dime. On your way out, everybody, hit like on the video if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you are coming to us on Twitter, like and repost this, follow FTN Fantasy on Twitter. See you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.